how do you think about a place like Vietnam, which is next door to Thailand? It's a bigger population, a lot more young people.
I want to go there.
You want to go
there?
Oh,
I want to go there. We want not just one, we want multiple hotels in Vietnam. Okay. I think Vietnam is a great market. I think people are very worldly and they get what we're all about. I think most Vietnamese I know, they're much more worldly than other more established cities just because of the exposure that we have. So I think with a brand like Standard, I think Vietnam is one of the primary target, both for urban and resort.
Here's my follow-up question though. Why haven't you been there yet? And that's kind of a leading question for me to ask, but I want to hear from you because I think a lot of the potential developers that I know are listening to today's show are thinking the same thing. They have all these brands, big boxed, boutique, whatever, coming in across all different types of industries that will play in real estate. And they all say the same things. You know, they don't know enough people there. They don't know about the real estate future. Maybe it's the paperwork. What are the common themes in your limited experience when coming to Vietnam that have prohibited you thus far from entering?
I think there's a couple of things. I think one thing is really giving a good understanding of what our product is. You know, we even had challenges here in Bangkok when we just started out because, as I mentioned earlier, we had really great brand awareness in the US and even in Europe, but not much in Asia. So convincing a hotel owner to invest quite a lot of money, into a completely different, a new product, it takes quite a bit, right? And even if we had a lot of successes in the US, even if we have a lot of successes in London, it doesn't quite translate. And you don't really have the trust of the developer yet, right? So it took a little while to find the right partners here in Asia. We have the Maldives and we have Hua Hin and we have Bangkok here. Now that we have, a good test case, a good showcase product, this is where we started going out properly, right? And it, obviously it takes a little bit of time. And I think I discussed with you a little offline too. I think the political situation, slowed things down a little bit towards the end of last year.
How do we keep the experience authentically charming as a Vietnamese destination?
That's a great question, and it's one that we wrestle with every single day. But if you think about the concept of this hotel, it's very much escapism here. You kind of don't know what century you're in terms of the theme, and sometimes you would maybe question where you are. However, Bill Bensley, the genius that he is, has weaved in many Vietnamese characteristics. So, for example, if you go down the main street here, Rue de la Marque, it speaks to Hoi An, for example. You see the lanterns, you see the caricatures. If you are in our main dining restaurant, Tempest Fugit, it's like the main market in Saigon, Ben
Thanh Market.
You can see that he's been tipping his hats to this market. So architecturally, even though it is this university theme, you can see that there is a Vietnamese component to it. In terms of the cuisine, our restaurants have a lot of Vietnamese offerings. We have an incredible chef, Nhung, who will delight you in whatever Vietnamese cuisine that you like. And the service level as well. Our staff is very accommodating to guests of whatever nationality in a Vietnamese Xin Chao type of mentality.
Yeah, very good. I've tried the menu extensively, Vietnamese. Very good bún chả. How do you measure the success of a guest's experience? Of course, there's Google Maps, there's TripAdvisor, I'm sure post-stay surveys and whatnot.
Marriott's metrics.
Yes. Oh, exactly. Yeah. I mean, they in a way, unfortunately matter. It's the internet, so they are what they are. Is it perhaps them returning to the property? Is it
boiling it down to its essence? A smile on a guest's face is worth a million surveys to me. And I think if you're a seasoned general manager, you have this antenna and you can tell if a guest is super happy or perhaps they need some attention or some help. So it's engaging with these these happy guests, and I think particularly families. We have many families that come here. So if you see a family unit together and the kids have big smiles on their faces, they feel totally comfortable. That means the parents are happy as well.
Yeah.
That's a huge indicator
Huge selling
to me.
point.
Yeah. And if we're able to get that word of mouth, that's a huge win for us as well. If I meet a guest and I hear, oh, my friend in Toronto said that you must come to JW Marriott Phuquoc, or a relative or what have you, this is something very edifying.
Yeah. Let's talk about the F&B side of things, food and beverage, for those of you that don't know the term. We talk a lot about how in emerging Asian cities that consumers want new experiences, new cuisines, and they're willing to go out and search for them. They want destinations. Now, a hotel in the traditional sense is not really a destination. It's a place where you have travelers from overseas, maybe from within the same country coming to stay, but they usually go out for experiences. May they be landmarks, food, shopping, whatever it might be. Here, though, and an increasing number, it's a discussion point across the whole hospitality industry. How do we capture more revenue per guest in a way, and F&B has to be that. And you mentioned, I believe offline, it was something like 75% of F&B revenue for standard, at least at this property, is F&B. Talk about that a little bit. How do you guys approach the development of concepts, F&B, and how do you think about that within the whole guest experience?
No, great question. And one of the differences in our hotels is we've always built our hotels for the local community, and our guests get to be part of it, rather than vice versa.
Okay.
Rather than building it for the guests and the local community gets part of it, we really build it for the local community, especially on the F&B side.
Okay.
So I would venture to say, because the stat you mentioned is correct, about 75% of our revenue in this hotel comes from food and beverage versus rooms.
Yep.
But I would venture to say that about 90% of the revenue within those F&B outlets comes from the local community and not from our guests.
Right.
So we're really in the restaurant and F&B and nightlife business with a hotel on top of it. So it's a different way of thinking about it. So when you think about that, you start to say what concepts would work well for the city.
Right.
And it's a combination of things. I'll take this hotel as an example because we're sitting here. We've taken a mix of things. Some things that we brought from overseas, staples of our brand, the Standard Grill, which is a American brasserie concept, beloved in New York. We did think that would work here because we think Bangkok was missing something like that. We brought Mott 32 from Hong Kong, which we love as a concept, and Chinese does well here, but they wanted to enter this market, so we were able to partner with them, bring them here. On the rooftop where we ate lunch together, we brought a Mexican concept because in my view, there has not been great Mexican food in this region, not for any fault of anybody's other than there's no Mexican people here to share their cuisine. And then we have something like the Parlor, which is meant to be youthful and fun. And last night there was a band playing, and tonight there's a poetry reading. So we took a whole mix of items, things that we brought, things that we created, things that are local, and that becomes more of an entertainment destination that happens to be in a hotel, rather than a hotel that happens to have a few restaurants.
Okay. How have you guys incorporated Vietnamese local culture and traditions into the whole experience of Six Senses, using that as maybe an example, perhaps, but perhaps there's others as well?
Sure. So one of the most important aspects of the brand is adapting to the environment where the resort is built. It's all about connecting with the environment. So we have to keep that in mind when we start operating a particular property. So if you talk about Six Senses in One Bay, and taking in context the beach topic that you said, in every villa, we have sunbeds that are right outside the villa, the beach villas I mean, and we have a couple of sunbeds by the pool. So all the guests have their privacy. As much as you said, Vietnamese love going to the beach and being out there and being in the ocean, there are also Vietnamese who want to protect themselves from the sun, especially the women. So this gives them the opportunity to either relax by their pool or take a quick dip in the ocean, come back in, and that little spot becomes their private beach. You know what I mean? So at any given point, you'll never find a massive crowd into the ocean or fighting for beach beds and so on. Everybody has their little own space. So I think in a way that's also understanding the culture, and knowing that you can't just put 50 sunbeds there and let everybody go and pick and spend their time. We allow them to have their privacy. We allow them to decide if they want to get into the ocean or be in the comfort of the villa and swim in the pool. So this is one of those examples that I can give. But in general, when it comes to produce, before we buy anything, we first ask ourselves, are we able to make it on property? If you're able to make it, we do so. If we cannot, is this available in Vietnam? Before looking outside of the Six Senses environment, we first check if it's available in Nha Trang. And then we start moving to different cities to get that produce in.
Out of any, let's say, 100 ingredients that are needed to make the menus today, how many of them are available on property? I remember biking around, and you have farms everywhere.
So I can tell you a ballpark, around 1.5 tons of harvesting is done every month.
Okay.
And these are fruits, vegetables, herbs. We have our own free-range eggs. We have chickens on the property. We don't use the meat. If the chicken passes away, we bury them.
Wow. Okay.
We don't use the meat. We have their eggs, of course. So yeah, around 1.5 ton in a good month, and obviously that is not enough to cater to the entire resort, but it helps. So I would say around 10-15% contribution towards all our requirement.
Yes. How do you guys reach the business folks too? What are they thinking about these days when it comes to not just a hotel, but a place, like you said, for mice and all that? What are the demands driving purchasing decisions these days, would you say?
We're grabbing market share, right? We have the Residence Club product, which is 175 rooms and suites, and that has a private club access where we serve breakfast and dinner. And so strategically, we made the decision last year to really improve the food there, right? So essentially, if you go there and you go for the evening cocktail, you don't need to go for dinner. And we found, oftentimes it's also trial and error, right? You try something, you see if it works. If it doesn't work, you do something else. You gotta be able to pivot sort of quickly into things that work. And from engaging with our mostly business clients up there, they really value that because they can simply focus on business. They don't worry about meals. Of course, they go out for entertainment and meetings and so on, but on other days where they just take care of their work, they don't have to worry about food and anything. So that works very well. What drives business for us is the location. Obviously businesses that are located in close vicinity. We have the AB Tower right next to us, and there's a number of businesses in there. So that's obviously a great feeder to our business, both for events and for just corporate clients. And then being member of a lot of the chambers and so on drives some business as well. It's a lot inviting people in and showing them the facilities. And because of a slightly lesser brand recognition in a sense, because we're still a younger and younger is the hotel is 28 years old, but the brand is not as well known as a Marriott, for example, or the Intercon. So we're often having to work a little bit harder to get the business.
Let's talk about the local culture a little bit. Korean brand, obviously, and when I do walk in, I feel that style, that quality really come out. You mentioned you've worked with local artists as well, though. How involved were you in thinking about that local integration, aside from the artists, but perhaps the service, the people? Were there any other elements that were considered when opening the property?
But I would say the first thing actually is the associate. Now in Vietnam, the warm, genuine welcome from Vietnamese hospitality. I would say that's the first thing. So you have already. We have one of the asset is already the associate. After it's really about the touch, as you mentioned, is about the heart. Is about the food and beverage. We're so really well known for our food and beverage. Here, we offer the Vietnamese dishes. We have to make sure something that is very important for us is we're offering Vietnamese dishes. It have to be the typical Vietnamese recipe. If we have the pho, it should come from Hanoi.
Yeah.
We don't want to do the pho from Central. We don't want to do the pho for international guests. It has to be the one from Hanoi. Same for the bún chả. So we have to respect, all those key elements. Yeah, I mean, the people, the food and beverage, obviously the activity that we offer, everything that we offer in terms of packages and things like that, we try to incorporate the cultural things. So, we bring people to the Marble Mountain, we bring people to the Cham Museum, all this fun. We try to also bring those elements to our offers because the people come here to discover actually Vietnam, Central Vietnam for the international guests. When we do things, we try to incorporate all those things as well.
Now we have a new airport arriving soon, Long Thành. I think that'll cut the commute maybe half an hour for you guys.
Absolutely, maybe probably
that
even
might be a
more.
game
Even more.
changer?
That will be a game changer. The combination of the new airport at Long Thành and the improvement of the road system between Long Thành and Bar Vang Tao in general will certainly be a game changer, because then the time the travel will be similar to Da Nang, Phu Quoc,
Right.
Manila, Singapore. So we're really looking forward to that as a big contributor to the future of the Grand Ho Tram.
So in 5 to 10 years' time, let's say, you've been with the business for 3.5 years now. The next 3.5 years, how do you see the business evolving under your leadership? What is there to look forward to? Like, I know that you guys did a rebranding exercise recently, I believe. Maybe you could touch upon that, among other perhaps infrastructure changes and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'll be here in 10 years, but I can maybe see the future of 10 years from now. And, it brings to mind reactions of living and working and assimilating into the culture of Vietnam. I compared Vietnam to China maybe 20 years ago in its very nascent stage, very early stage of its economic development. And I can sense the initiative of Vietnam, the youth, the creativity, the drive, the partnership between the government and the business community, which I believe is very strong. And sometimes I even think that the citizens of Vietnam themselves can't see the future of that because they're too ingrained in the day-to-day their day-to-day lives. But I see a very bright future for Vietnam. So again, the infrastructure is critical. The fact that our market in Ho Chi Minh is defensible. For example, if a foreigner in Ho Chi Minh wanted to go to a casino anywhere else, they're going to have to get on an airplane. And they're going to have to drive to the airport, get on that plane, fly, drive, et cetera, et cetera. There is no great gaming operation closer to Ho Chi Minh than we are. So as long as we're the choice of our customers, then that's very defensible. If you're trying to fly in international customers, even if you have a new airport at Long Thanh, those customers still have many choices. They can fly to Singapore, Macau, Las Vegas, Korea, Da Nang, Phu Quoc, but that's our closest market, and it's defensible and critical. I've always observed that every successful casino operation on this planet in the history of casinos has as its primary market a local component. That's its primary component. What does that mean? Macau is Macau not because customers are flying in from Shanghai or Beijing. It's because Guangdong province has 100 million people to it. And Macau's the closest, gaming destination to it. Vegas is Vegas not because people fly in from Boston, Chicago, and New York. It's because it's a 4-hour car ride from SoCal. So in that same sense, we benefit from Ho Chi Minh. And when that connectivity improves because of the infrastructure development, both airport and maybe the road system even having a bigger impact, that'll portend well for Grand Ho Tram.